on Secondhand Talent family? It's your boy Steiner here, as always. With me once again, the wonderful Justin Hampton. Justin, thank you so much for being
Absolutely. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. It's greater to have you. I'm going to hold that one over you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
So this is the final part of our 4-part series, the 4th installment. Justin, what else you got for us, man? Come on.
Well, there's a litany of things that happened in the last, I don't know, 12 years. That it's weird when you're in your career. I think I mentioned early on, like one of the things that I really wanted to do from the beginning was kind of get the bad drawing out of the way. It's just
Yeah.
keep going, keep getting better, and hopefully become more satisfied with what I was doing. And it's certainly not that I don't have moments that I'm proud of, before then, but I do feel like the best work of my career has come in the last like 12, 13 years,
Mm.
where I really kind of like hit a groove that I noticed myself as being superior work. Like I said, not to diminish from anything before that, because there's obviously some great little moments, but yeah, some of the stuff I did more recently, I'm very, very proud of.
And what are some of those projects? I know there's one in particular with a band that has the same initials as my favorite garment, pajamas. That you were very proud to be a part of.
That's funny. There's been many, like I've had, especially when I was like considering doing a book, I had people asking me since the late 90s, like, when are you going to do a book? And I was always like, I don't feel like I've done enough. You know what I mean? I don't feel like I'm at the place that I came to around 2010-ish, where I felt better about it, and
Sure.
then significant moments started happening, you know. Soundgarden got back together. I did a bunch of the reunion posters. That was super cool. Ween reunited, and I did the reunion posters for them. Pearl Jam 20. I did the official poster for that event, and I worked directly with Jeff Ament from Pearl Jam, and
Wow.
that was amazing. I went to the show, was flown out. Me and all the poster artists that had done stuff for the band were flown out and put up to be a part of a little mini poster show that happened at the event in like the
Wow.
concession area at the top of the amphitheater. And so not only did we have this free table show we were selling goods at, but we got to hear this phenomenal show that was going down the whole time. And the night that I came in, which was very, very late, and it just in the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin at the, what the hell was that place called? Alpine Ridge Amphitheater.
Alpine
Um,
Valley?
Alpine Valley. Yes, yes. Yeah.
Ah, Alpine Valley. I love
Yeah, yeah,
it. This
yeah,
is my
yeah,
first
yeah.
fish shows.
So I was flown to Chicago. We took a
Right.
bus through Milwaukee and up to
Uh-huh.
Alpine Valley. We didn't get in till shit midnight or something like that when we
Yeah,
finally got
yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then setting up the posters because the show began the next day. So we were there till like 3 a.m. And then seeing everyone that I knew, Clausen, Ames, Jermaine, all these people that were like, people that I knew, and hanging out and talking, Monk One. Uh, and and then at one point they did a sound check, which was just phenomenal. And it was just Eddie Vedder and Chris Cornell at like 3 a.m. with an empty amphitheater doing Temple of the Dog. And it was just like goosebumps. Everyone stopped what they were doing. We stood at the top of the amphitheater outside the concession stand and looked down at this empty amphitheater with the two of them doing this like a cappella version. And it was just goosebumps. It was just, I literally, it was one of those moments where I didn't even think to grab my phone to record it because I was just so just like, what are we
Yeah.
seeing unfold? Like,
Wow.
yeah, it was. And then after that happened, a little later, Eddie Vedder came by and thanked all the artists for being there. Totally cool guy. And I told him, I was like, I let him know how special it was for me because I had printed their shirts back when they had just changed their name from Mookie Blaylock to Pearl Jam, literally, and were having their first show as Pearl Jam. And it was the Mookie shirts with the Pearl Jam, Pearl Jam, Pearl Jam, Pearl Jam with Mookie on basketball. I printed those shirts and I sold them at that show. So I was like, go way back. He was
Wow.
like, "Oh, you work for Sorensen, Jim Sorensen, the guy that we printed all the grunge T-shirts back in the day." And I was like, so to be chosen to do the Pearl Jam 20 poster was like just so full circle and weird
It's
and awesome.
so incredibly circuitous and like,
Yeah,
I mean, it must have been
it
just such a like benefesh like in your soul. So it's like a
was. He
satisfying like
literally stood there and took it in for a second, and then he gave me a big hug, and he was like, "That's so cool. That's so," and he signed my poster, and it said, "You rule, Eddie Vedder." I still have it to this day, and it was like these
wow.
moments started unfolding like this in the last 13 years or so, where things were becoming very full circle in this way. I had done some posters for Mark Lanigan. My first one was in 1998. I did one in 2003. Obviously, while he was in Queens of the Stone Age, I did a bunch. And then I reconnected with him in 2009. I moved to Portland from Seattle, and he was playing a show at the Doug for Lounge. And I just talked to the promoter and did the poster. And I showed up at the show, and after the show was over, he was signing posters at the merch table, or not posters, merch. He didn't have any posters. He didn't have any T-shirts. He just had like discs. And I waited in line, and I walked up, and he looked up, and he was like, "Why are you in line, dude?
Ah.
Why don't you just come up and you didn't have to wait in line?" I was like, "Yeah, we can talk about it. I don't want to be a dick, I just, want to be respectful." He's like, "All right, man, don't do that again. You don't have to do." I'm like, "All right, man, it's good to see you." He's like, "Yeah, totally." And I was like, "So I see you don't have any posters." He's like, "Yeah, I mean," and I was like, "All right, say no more." During the Queens period, like I made, a lot of posters and made Josh a lot of money. So let me help you make more money, please. And he was like, "Here's my number, here's my email address." And I was like, "Let's do it." And he signed the poster for the night. He was like, "I'm so glad. It was so like awesome to like just randomly play a show and see that not only did you do the poster and I didn't have a clue about, but then you came up afterward, and it's good to see you, and I'm glad." So
That's
it
phenomenal.
it started a beginning of a new kind of beautiful relationship of like doing every poster for every tour he did up until he passed away. And what a thrill! Mark Lanigan to me he was a part of my life, literally my entire adult life. Because Screaming Trees, I saw them in '89 for the first time.
Big
I
Screaming
got
Trees fan.
Oh,
Yep.
amazing. I got his first solo album in '90, and I've just collected everything he's done since. And doing posters to him, in the '90s and 2000s via Queens was such an awesome thing. But then to suddenly be in this position where I was working directly with the dude, it was just so cool. It was just Mark was such a good guy and such a fan of my work, and he was an absolute musical treasure. Not only his own stuff that he created, which was so all of his lyrics were so visceral to me, and so I tend to lie in the like darker themes, much like himself, and so we had this like really simpatico vibe as far as how we reflected each other's works,
Mm.
and it was a thrill. I mean, I would get on the phone and we'd talk for like an hour, and just half of it would be shooting the shit about career trajectories and the struggles and the triumphs, and then there'd be part about the album he had coming up, and he would send me a copy to download before it ever came out. I'd get to listen to it 3 months ahead or work on this design for him. And what it was just amazing. It's his passing was just so tragic,
Yeah.
especially the fact that the last print that we did was a revision of my 2012 Blues Funeral Tour artwork, which was it was originally a guy with a crow's head that looked like a plague doctor on a funeral wagon, and in a graveyard setting with a church behind it. And that was the blues funeral theme. So when the pandemic came, I was like, how about I put an actual plague doctor's mask on this character, and we roll this out and call it Days of Pandemia. And it's a reflection back, but it's also a way for us to both make money when you can't tour. And I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna
Yeah.
make a living because this is my money doing tour posters for bands.
A very,
So he was like, I
very
love it.
real situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So he said, I love it. And I showed him how I wanted to revise the art. I'd already done it just for the hell of it to show him the finished version. And he loved it. And I was like, well, let's do something special. And I'll sign them and send them to you to sign. And then you'll send them back. And then we'll send them out. And he was like, let's do it. Let's fucking do it. Desperate times, desperate measures.
I
And
mean, desperate times, desperate measures, but what a person to be in those desperate times and go through those desperate measures with. And,
totally.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. So that was a huge triumph. And then he moved to Ireland to get away from the chaos of America at that point with the political landscape, the protests, the raging pandemic. And he had a friend of his, Donald Logue, had a house, who's an actor. Uh, he said he had a house in Ireland when he was talking to Mark, because Mark was like, I want to get the fuck out of the country. And he was like, well, I got a house there. Why don't you just go stay there? There's no one in it. So he did. He took him up on it. And his goal was to reach Portugal and to be closer to his fan base in Europe, because his major fan base was Europe. His shows in America were half full, sadly, which I don't get. I've just been such a fan ever
I'll never
since. But
understand things like that with certain
yeah,
bands
yeah,
and certain artists.
totally. But in
I
Europe, he could
totally
sell out
understand what you mean.
3 nights in a row at one venue and then move on to the next venue and play 3 nights in a row, and so he was, going to kind of live as like not really retirement, but like a new phase in his life. And then he caught COVID. And unfortunately, he didn't make it after he seemingly survived the coma that he went in. It caught up with him, and like so many people that we lost. Very sad day when I heard about it. Oh my God. I cried a lot. I was so deeply affected. I revered our friendship and our working relationship. And yeah, it was rough. But it's the craziest part about life, man, is losing people. And it was the same way when Cornell passed. I literally was waking up to do a radio interview that morning, and I checked my Facebook as I was getting out of bed, and I saw that Cornell had passed. And it was just, I mean, I again just started crying. I couldn't believe it. This guy was another voice of my adult life. And it was really hard to gather myself for that interview, like an hour after finding out. But and that was another bitching relationship that went back to the '90s too, with Soundgarden. Yeah,
One of the things about being in the entertainment industry is that in particular, and we all have our own circumstances, but I feel like in the entertainment scene we do tend to uh, we lose a lot of friends. It's about what you do with it afterwards and how you
yeah,
choose to memorialize and encapsulate those events as you go forward.
for
And I
sure.
think that's apparent, in, at least in what I've seen in Visual Feast so far.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I mean, one of the trippiest moments in recent times was I went to the funeral. I was invited by his widow, and just standing there at this truly beautiful cemetery in LA, Hollywood Forever, and it was like right on a pond, and on one side of the pond is Lanigan's headstone. On the other side of the pond is Cornell's headstone. And my first big show I saw in Seattle was Screaming Trees, Soundgarden in 1989. And I was
Wow.
just like, how would have I ever been able to like grasp that this was something I would experience at some point in time? And it just like hit me really hard. I had to go back the next day and just kind of be by myself to
Sure.
absorb it. So I went the next afternoon and just walked around the cemetery by myself. It was, yeah, just the trip, man.
Like
So
that.
another really cool moment that happened was with Mark was I had done my I guess first actual poster for him directly, which we had talked about before, and this was the Blues Funeral poster, the first one in 2012, and I finished that, and then I pitched him an idea that I had, which was to do a poster of him, just him, no type, no information, just a portrait. And I go, I want to draw you as like the patron saint of sin, and have you basically like you're standing in front of like a stained glass window. That's you're like a preacher almost, you know. And he was like, "All right, that sounds dope." And I was like, "In fact, I saw on your tour you have a date coming up in London, and I have a date coming up. I'm having a show in London. Once again, making this happen." And
It's there
funny
you
with the
go.
former Queens of the Stone Age guy. And he was like, "All right, that sounds cool. You know, that's cool." And I was like, "Would you be into, you know, coming by the gallery and signing some copies with me?" And he's like, "Yeah, you know, if I'm gonna do that, I should play it. I should play a little acoustic set at the art show." And I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah, let's try to get more people there." I was like,
Oh, there'll
cool.
be plenty of people there.
All right. I would have never thought to ask that, but holy crap, that's cool." And
Wow.
so it was a amazing event in this little intimate gallery in Greenwich in London, and there was people lined up from the early morning till it opened in the afternoon.
That's
And
incredible.
there's a video on YouTube that I shot myself. It's you should look it up. Yeah, the Flood Gallery, Mark Lanigan. It's yeah, one of those moments again where it was just like, wow, this is a pinch me moment. So that was the kind of guy Mark
Seriously.
was though. He was just a cool dude like
I mean, kind of like, how you were just saying about how this circuitousness or circularity or whatever the word I'm thinking of, coming back around of
that.
having
Right.
done this for Queens of the Stone Age and that in London and lining that up to coming back around now, 10 years to
10
over
years
10
later.
years
Yep.
later
Right.
to having this Mark Lanigan print. And I know exactly what print you're talking about because I'm a
Right.
huge Constantine fan.
Oh,
And
okay, cool,
it
cool.
and
I
it
can see
always
that. Yeah,
reminded
yeah.
it always reminded me of Hellblazer a little bit,
Perfect. That's exactly it.
which I think is pretty much which is the vibe you were going for. He's the patron
Absolutely.
saint of
Yeah, yeah.
sin. That's kind of
Absolutely. Yeah.
so it always
The
gave
other
me
cool
those.
thing about that print
Yeah,
was that was the title that he wanted to give it was the nickname that Kurt Cobain gave him in the 90s because he would always show up in the middle of the night at Kurt's place and want to hang, wake him up. And so he called him the night porter. And so he was like, "That's what I want to call this, the night porter." I was like, "Awesome. Love it."
Don.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Wow.
was one of my favorite prints I've ever done. It was really fun.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, it's an incredible one. It's
Thanks.
one of the ones that I appreciate the most. I mean, obviously from the musical angle, but also from, like I said, that personal, that comic book fan angle of being like Constantine has paid now hearing patron saint of sin. I'm like, all right, this is all just coming
That's
right on together.
nailed it.
And
Totally nailed it. Yeah.
as we've established, Visual Feast, the retrospective book is coming out shortly. And, we're leading into some of the more career defining moments, I would say,
Mhm.
overall, that would have come in the last, I don't know, several years. And I was hoping you could share some that really stand out to you.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Well, let's see. There was a Nirvana exhibit at the uh, former EMP, which is now called Mopop. It's the music, well, entertainment museum in Seattle, basically. Um, so I did a print of Cobain, which is basically my interpretation of the song "Something in the Way," which I called the print underneath the bridge, and that was really cool. That was a really fun thing to be a part of. There was a lot of really great art that happened. In fact, Jermaine did a piece for that one as well. Um, I got a call to do a poster for Metallica, which was very cool. Um, One of the bands that inspired me as a young kid, because my uncle was so into them, there was another cool call to get was a official poster for Kiss. So that was pretty damn cool. And the imagery is just, yeah, it's like comic book characters completely. And they were, that Marvel made a comic out of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, fun stuff. So The last poster that went into the book as a new poster was for The Who. And my brother, my older brother, who passed away in 2015, was a huge Who fan. And so
Oh,
when I got the offer to do that poster, I was just like, oh, yeah, for sure. That
yeah.
was like to my brother, kind of poster. So that was really fun. But but yeah, there's been some pretty wild moments. I did a T-shirt for Alice in Chains back in the '90s, in the early '90s, and I did. Jermaine was doing a tour for Alice in Chains, the newer version, and he reached out and said, "Hey, you want to do an Alice date?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, for sure." 2016, I did that Alice poster. So that was another like long looping, design coming back around or whatever,
Sure.
or opportunity. But there's definitely been many cool moments. I'm not a wealthy man, but I have a wealth of cool experiences.
Well, pop a couple in there that were left out that I recall from other conversations. So Danger Mouse,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
is probably, I want to go ahead and say, the number one LimeWired
Right.
album in the
Yeah, totally.
history
Napster,
of
LimeWire.
music. Yeah,
Right, right.
Kazaa
Totally.
and all
Yeah,
that. Now,
that
and
that was
I
a
mean,
really
history right there.
yeah, that's almost 20 years ago now too. That next year will be 20 years ago.
Let's not talk
So
about that part of it.
so the interesting part about that story ties into an earlier story I told, which is the show I had in Manchester with Queens. When that happened, there was a lot of press that happened around that event. Uh, and NME published photos of me and Jermaine Emek with the Queens guys. They showed a bunch of even the pre-hype for just the show that we're having. Various posters, including my Motorhead poster, other Queens posters, whatever. So it was really saturating the market in England well before the show.
Hmm.
Uh, and this young guy, Brian Burton, Danger Mouse, was in England at the time. He saw it, kind of earmarked it. And he came home. He was working on the Gray album, which, of course, at that point, no one knew what the hell it was. And I got an email one day, and it just said, "Hey, I'm a DJ, a producer, and I'm putting together this ambitious project, and I would love to have you design something for it." And I was like, "All right, well, what's it about?" And he was like, "It's a mashup of Jay-Z's a cappella release of the Black Album mixed with exclusive samples from the White Album of the Beatles." And I was like, "Oh, that's crazy cool." And I was like,
Yeah.
there was part of me that was like, this is either going to be really good or really horrible. There's really no in between on this. You know what I mean? So I was like, I don't want to be a jerk, but I really got to hear it first. He was like, "Yeah, no problem. I'll send you this." So he sent me a disc and I listened to the first track and I was just like, holy shit, this is
Hmm.
cool. And the really wild thing is, I'm 54 now. So the year I was born was 1968, which was the year the White Album came out. So it had extra meaning to me.
Yeah.
Not
Oh,
only
wow. There you go.
one of
Yeah.
the greatest bands in the world, but to have one of the greatest rappers of all time, you know, and him to put it together like that and use his, skills to show off this like magical thing he turned out. It was really something. So I was really blessed. He had no idea, neither did I, that it was going to become a worldwide phenomenon. It's just something he was doing to show off his skills. And it was a giveaway. It was a giveaway to DJs. It was a giveaway to show off what he could do. And it just went freaking global, viral, everywhere.
Yep. Yes, it
And
did.
one of the most genius guerrilla campaigns ever because EMI was suing him for using the Beatles samples, even though he wasn't making money on it. And EMI in the talent department were trying to hire him. And so they were like, "Oh, we can
Uh,
handle this internally.
uh,
We're going to drop the lawsuit and we're going to hire you." And that's what
uh,
happened. And he
wow.
became a worldwide phenomenal, producer and is still to this day.
Incredible.
Yeah. And it was, yeah, I got to meet him when I went to LA one time and hang out a bit and just a nice guy, really cool. Just super, super talented dude. Yeah.
And speaking of super, super talented dudes, I know you also wanted to talk a little bit about your Metallica project.
That was fun. That was another kind of looping idea because the first time I saw them was on the Justice for All tour in 1988. I want to say 88, 89 with the Cult. Um, and so I had this idea for, and it was actually a painting I had done earlier for a equality show around 2010 with a woman bound that looked like the Lady Justice with the scales, the sword, and the blindfold. And I was like, oh man, that's just perfect for this. And I was like, can I do an older theme? And they said yes. And so that's what I did was this image, which you can show, which I also did an art
Injustice
print
for
version,
all. Yeah.
Injustice for All, which I turned into an art print without the name on it called Bound Justice, which holy crap, could that be more relevant today with women's rights
Seriously.
issues? Just, it's crazy that it felt like it was always being ticked away at back when I came up with the original idea. And Jesus, it's gotten so insane.
It's incredible
Still,
how
yeah,
things become poignant when you least want them to, right? Like
right.
that's
Exactly. It's true.
yeah. Um, really just overall, I mean, as I've been listening in, and for anybody who's been watching, they've seen my face kind of go slack from time to time. I just feel there's been such um a breadth and wealth of knowledge that's been shared over here, and I was hoping you could give our listeners and viewers just kind of a little glimpse of, in addition to all of these stories, like what else can we look forward to in Visual Feast.
Well, you're going to hear the history from the beginning when I basically left Medford as a teenager, as 18 to current, various stories, various highlights. One of my favorite things about doing this book at the end, as it was being put together and compiled, I started reaching out to various people to ask for quotes. And I've gotten some phenomenal quotes, including a posthumous quote from Frank Ozen. He gave me, when I asked him for a quote, he gave me four. He was like, just choose one. That's the kind of guy he was. I got a quote from Jeff Ament. I got a quote from Kim Thile from Soundgarden. I even reached out to the management of Motorhead, posthumous Lemmy quote that I told them, this thing that he had said. They were like, yeah, I remember him saying that. You could definitely use that. So I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's
So I've got a
awesome.
posthumous quote from Lemmy. Lemmy was rad. He was a cool guy, huge legend. That was a thrill to work with him too. There's just a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of I think the most interesting thing about this book is the fact that there's behind the scenes stuff. There's a lot of stories, there's a lot of
Mm.
sketches, there's a lot of photos, a lot of tales told, as well as the art. So that's why it's this massive book. It's because it's got so much in it. Yeah.
And how many pages again, by the way?
444. The Kickstarter that I did was for 400 pages, and it was about like 375 when I launched the Kickstarter. And I was like, oh, I'll just finish the next 15 pages, no big deal. And then I just kind of was like, oh yeah, and then there was this, and then there was and then there's that one story, and oh yeah, but that one piece that I didn't throw in here, I got to write something about it now. And 444 pages evolved.
Yeah, right. But wait, though. But
Yeah,
I'm sorry. But that's not just
pretty
one.
much.
Yeah, exactly.
So the
No, for
funny thing is,
sure.
like, going and telling the Kickstarter, backers that, like, I'm sorry it's taking longer, but the book's going to be bigger. There was no one that was like, no, don't make it bigger.
Right.
Everyone's like,
And
cool.
as as one of those Kickstarter backers, I mean, for me,
Right
it
on.
was just like, this is awesome. I want to hear all these stories, and never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that, from the inception of that Kickstarter to today, that I would have this platform to be able to share these stories here as well as read them in Visual Feast. And
That's awesome.
I am just so incredibly grateful that you've joined us on the program, and that we've kind of had to have a bit of a Hampton month here at Secondhand Talent.
Absolutely. Love it. Awesome.
Um, we sincerely appreciate you. And ladies and gentlemen, Justin freaking Hampton, Visual Feast coming at you shortly. Find all the links and information you need in the description. Justin, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And for Steiner, this is Secondhand Talent. We love you. Check out next week's episode with the first part of our interview with Caleb Williamson. All right.
Cool. Got it.
That was sweet.
Awesome.
I felt